Hey guys, so in today's video, I want to talk about telepathy. This is something that doesn't really get addressed in most spiritual circles. I think largely because we've come to associate telepathy with wooiness and maybe remote viewing and some really weird stuff, right? But in this video, I want to talk about the logical basis for telepathy and where we can predictably observe it and really come to know for ourselves whether or not this thing really exists. Stay tuned. So in my experience, where I've seen telepathy arise most consistently and most often is within the context of a near-death experience, or at least some kind of an out-of-body experiences. People who enter the spirit world, they describe that the communication that takes place within this environment, within this context, does not take place verbally. And this is something that I personally have experienced for myself. And let me tell you, it's a weird experience.
I could hear like somebody speaking to me, like telepathy.
The best way that I can describe it, based on what I've observed, is when you come into the spirit world, it's essential to first understand that this spirit world, this idea of the spirit world, is the notion of the world within the mind itself. I'm reminded of that beautiful Hindu story about little Krishna. It says that when Krishna was playing with his friends, he put dirt in his mouth and his friend went and told on him. And his mother, Yashoda, she comes and she grabs Krishna and she says, "Open your mouth so that I can see what's in your mouth." And so Krishna opens his mouth and Yashoda sees within the little boy Krishna the entirety of the universe inside of his mouth. Now, obviously, this is a myth and it's best understood through an altered state of consciousness, right? This is a vision. Obviously, physically, the whole universe is not inside Krishna, right? But it's the idea that the spirit world is a reality within the nature of mind itself. That's to say, this is an internal reality. This is something, neurologists and psychologists refer to as the internal model. This idea that all of our experiences, all of our subjective experiences of seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, all of these things take place within the nature of mind. Any good neurologist can tell you that seeing doesn't really take place in the eye so much as it takes place in the brain. Same with hearing and everything else, right? So there's this internal subjective reality, the simulation that we really live inside of that's organized by the inner neurology of the human brain. And so when we talk about the spirit world, what we're really talking about is this immediate subjective experience, the nature of mind. And this is really the most commonly encountered when we talk about dreams and things of this kind.
And we were communicating. There was communication going on, but it was perfect communication. It was like telepathic
But when you explore this reality, when you explore this inner world of the mind itself, what you recognize is that other phenomena within that reality are not just objectively out there. There is a sense of them being objectively real, but they're also intimately connected with you in a mysterious way. One of the things, I often face this when I talk to people about journeying into the spirit world or having an experience of the spirit world. They say, well, how do you know certain things, right? Like, for instance, you may see a light and you say, "Oh, it's God." And they say, well, how do you know that that light was God, right? You see, they're thinking in materialist terms. They're thinking in terms of their waking awareness. And we know that in our waking awareness, to really know something, you have to go over and you have to examine it. You have to measure it, right? Because the world is separate from us in this state of mind, right? We have to know things through gathering information. But in the spirit world, you intuit things. You know things because you feel the phenomena that are right there in front of you. You don't just see them, you don't just hear them, but you intuit that reality. You can feel the energy that's inside different phenomena. And this is really the basis for telepathy. When you enter into the spirit world and you encounter another entity, you intuit the communications. That's to say, in my own experience, when I was standing in the void of dreamless sleep and I saw Buddha Amitabha across from me, he said to me, "You're not permitted to be here." And he didn't communicate this through words, it was through feelings, and those feelings were communicated to me, and then my own thoughts animated.
Because it wasn't even using words, really. It spoke to me through like feelings and through emotions and through like telepathy, through like the voice in my own head, basically. But it wasn't my voice. It's really weird, and it's really like hard to explain.
We all have this experience even while we're awake. You'll be standing, say in a lineup, and you'll have a certain feeling, and then that feeling will inspire a certain thought, and maybe you say, "Oh, that's a terrible thought. I shouldn't think that," right? Or, "Oh, that's really something I don't want to go down," right? Maybe you think about the death of a loved one, or maybe you think about, some horrible event or some terrible perspective on somebody. You say, "Oh, where did that thought come from?" Right? This is the experience we have. Well, I mean, you think about it, okay? Your mind is your own. So where are these other thoughts coming from? They're coming from the depths of the unconscious mind, right? And it's in the depths of the unconscious that we can encounter these other powers, these other energies, which are really spirits, right? This is what the ancient world understood to be spirits. And so, when you talk about telepathy, it is, as it were, a form of communication in which emotions are communicated and one's own thoughts animate those feelings.
But I could hear him talking to me and through his mind, not like he wasn't speaking, but I could hear him.
This is really what I would call the universal language. Even, oddly enough, when you talk about people who have had experiences with extraterrestrials, they sometimes say that, they are communicated with telepathically. Now, I always hesitate to speak about extraterrestrials because it's not something that I personally have had much experience with. I don't really like teaching you guys about things that I haven't already personally witnessed or experienced myself, right? Really, the priority here on Enlighten Channel is experience, right? Sharing experiences and understanding the importance of observation when we're talking about religious theories or spiritual hypotheses, right? But one of the things that people describe in extraterrestrial experiences is that they will receive communications from these entities intuitively. They'll telepathically hear a voice in their head. And for me, oddly enough, this actually lends a little more credibility to some of these testimonies because I think, well, I know what they're describing, right? But the suggestion there, of course, is that to these entities, their experience of our waking reality is much more like a dream, and that's very mysterious, and you hear all kinds of strange stories associated with that. But it's fundamental here to understand that when we talk about telepathy, what we're really describing is this inner experience of the mind and this communication of emotion where the world itself is felt to be much more like a dream. And so if you guys are really interested in having an experience like this for yourselves, I would really encourage you to go over and check out our programs in Enlighten University. The whole impetus behind our curriculum is to help people to understand religion and spirituality and ultimately to find an experience for themselves. As a matter of fact, I don't allow anyone to graduate from our programs until they've had a religious experience of their own. So right now, it's June 2020 or July 2020, sorry. And, the programs are still being developed. And so we're still fleshing that out. But as time goes on, you guys will see that this thing gets more and more fleshed out and finished off. But if you guys are interested, check that out. And as always, thanks for watching.